Hey, Sens fans, welcome to season 5, episode 22 of the Senstennial Podcast, which is unfortunately taking place during another playoff bracket that does not include your Ottawa Senators. It's becoming the common occurrence here. So, while sad, it is not unexpected. And we're going to do more of a recap episode. We're going to talk about the season. We're going to talk about, the first year of Steos and Anlauer at the helm, all that stuff. And we're going to talk about our ratings of the best player for Ottawa this season, the worst player, and the most surprising player. So, hang tight and we're going to get through all of that. I'm going to kick it over to Bennett here first. And Bennett, it was a long and arduous season for the Ottawa Senators. And I want you to give us your opinion on what you thought of the 2023-24 Ottawa Senators.
Well, I think any Sens fan will tell you that they were disappointed with how this season went. Not just, broad strokes missing the playoffs. I mean, to be honest, that's old news around here. It's the way in which that we missed the playoffs. Last season the Senators put up, I believe, 86 points and were just a few games shy of making it into the playoffs. And I think that gave Sens fans a lot of hope and expectation that, they would continue on that upward trajectory and squeak in this coming season. But instead, the Sens regressed in just about every major metric as a team this year. We finished with 78 points, so making that 8 fewer than the season before. We finished with a team average save percentage of 884, which is well below league average, even in a year where the league average was itself not that high. Was still sub 900, and the Senators failed to clear that very low hurdle. Coppello, Forsberg, and Sogard were all among the worst performing goaltenders by pretty much any metric in 23-24, which was probably the major reason for the season to fall flat the way it did. But like I said, we pretty much regressed in every single metric. The Senators' power play, which was 8th in the league last year and a real source of strength, even without Josh Norris, who missed most of last season, we dropped to 23rd in the league in power play this year. And anyone who attended the Sens game at the CTC or who just watched on TV would tell you that like a Senators power play this year was a complete non-event. I mean, like we would go, I went to games where we had 5 or 6 power plays and didn't score on any of them. And fans around the arena were just like groaning and moaning and shaking their heads. And this is the exact opposite energy that you want from a power play. And likewise in the penalty kill, we went from middle of the road 14th last year to 29th in 23-24. So bottom three, four. Yeah, bottom four. And not just the team, individual players regressed. Brady and Timmy both had smaller point totals than they did last year. We know now, with the benefit of hindsight, based on the exit interviews, that Stützle was nursing an injury for most of the year, which makes sense because he just looked like a little bit out of sorts for large stretches of the season. Didn't really look very comfortable shooting the puck. And while he is an excellent playmaker and that is his bread and butter, so he still had a lot of assists. His goal total fell significantly compared to what he had the previous year. And you could say the same of Claude Giroux. And obviously Norris was a non-factor this year. So a lot of offense really dried up for the Senators. Defense continued to not be good. Goaltending took a complete nosedive off of a cliff. And it's really hard to find any positive takeaways from a team perspective or, to be honest, from individual perspectives. The team just got worse in just about every measurable way, and that sucked.
Yeah, and I'm not going to jump on top of that because I think you already said it quite well. I do always try to look for the positive little glimmers of hope in there. And I think one of those was, of course, the play of Mathieu Joseph, who at the beginning of the year was being talked about as a guy who the Sens might have to hand a first round pick to another team to get his contract off the books that they could sign Shane Pinto. And of course, we know the events that followed, but I think Joseph had a really nice season for himself, a bounce back season. And as I just mentioned, Shane Pinto coming back. he had a really nice final 41 games with the Ottawa Senators when he came back from his suspension. And one more other player who I think was kind of a bright spot this season was Jake Sanderson. And I don't think anything else really needs to be said at this point in time. But, like you said, like those are nice stories. But at the same time, and I know Jake Sanderson is one of Ottawa's primary players, but it felt like no one really stepped up the entire season. I'm really happy that Brady Tkachuk, reached a new goal total, like a career high in a single season. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things. Claude Giroux obviously regressed, and I mean he's in his late 30s, so I don't have extremely high expectations of him. But there just wasn't a lot to write home about. Obviously, their total points diminished. Their goaltending was lackluster. It was frustrating. And of course, Jacques Martin, he tried to turn things around. And I believe it was TSN 1200 where they said from the time that DJ Smith ran the season until he was fired, Ottawa was sitting at about 30th in the NHL. But if you just counted points from when Jacques Martin took over to the end of the season, Ottawa sat about 19th. So it just shows you that if they had had maybe a proper coaching structure from the onset of the season, that might have helped them put them more in that conversation for a playoff spot. Who knows though, ifs, whats, shoulds, coulds, all that good stuff. But Matt, I'll pass it off to you and maybe get any other thoughts that you have on the season that was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to touch on exactly what you guys already have. This season was sheer disappointment. From goaltending to the regression of young stars, this season was doomed when they announced that they were going to Sweden. Keeping on DJ and Dorion and had barely sold the franchise to Michael Andlauer by the time this regular season had rolled around. Just felt like things were slow moving going into the season, and you needed some of those things to be going pretty quickly. And then, of course, this season had a lot of expectations, but just lived up to none of them. It felt like the team was on a natural linear progression, with this season being the one where they were going to make the wild card. But instead, in classic Senators fashion, they took a huge step back. I can pinpoint two things, having mentioned them already: having a lame duck coach in DJ Smith, and then bad goaltending. We've all seen the stats, though. Sens were dominant with an above 900 save percentage from their goalies. And if they got more consistency from them, they may have gotten the points necessary to make the playoffs. But it's even worse when the goalie you just signed for 5 years couldn't even give you many good performances and probably put up some of the worst goaltending in Senators history. But I think one had to do with the other. DJ wasn't here very long this season, of course, but he had been for 7 seasons prior. So, the Senators trainers and so on continue to suck his terribly structured venom out of the veins of the current Ottawa Senators. And you can still see the habits that he instilled in the guys until the final seconds of this past season ticked off in the last game. So I know it's a tough pill to swallow, and we've been swallowing it for many, many years. But I think this offseason is crucial in changing this team for the better. And, Staios and co really have to get things right.
And on that note, let's talk about Staios and Andlauer. It was their first season at the helm. I think expectations were really high. People were like, Ottawa has a new owner now. The structure of the front office will be different. As Bennett has said in the past, the guillotine is coming down. Heads from the Melnick regime will roll. This is our Viva la France revolution season for the Ottawa Senators, but sadly it did not happen. They might as well have pulled back that gladiator playoff performance and put that back, run it back with that, because that's kind of how it felt like, kind of cheap plastic and lackluster monologues. I'm getting really off the rails.
Where are you going with this, my guy?
You're like Russell Crowe with the hotel phone right now. You're in your gladiator era.
That's right.
This is a Senstennial After Dark episodes. This is where like the brain's already losing function of productivity
To
from being
clarify,
up,
everybody, we're just recording after 9 o'clock, and we're
which
all
is after dark,
done.
baby. But yeah, on that note, Steos takes over basically no moves during his tenure. There's obviously the Vladimir Tarasenko trade, picking up Boris Kachuk off waivers, but really not much to write home about. There maybe a lot of people are saying it's one of those seasons where you really just wait, evaluate everything at the end of the season, where you've had a chance to view everything in its entirety and then decide to make all these moves. Possibly one of the reasons why they didn't bring in a permanent head coach. There's a lot, and maybe that's something we can start off talking about. With this season, how did you feel about Steve Staios's maybe lack of moves or hesitancy to make moves? And that can be including like when he decided to fire DJ Smith. That can be appointing himself general manager. That could be his decision to really only make one trade of significance. And I would say significance really just being selling off the one pending UFA, anything like that. And I'll throw it to Matt first to maybe talk on this point.
Well, I think we have to like pull the camera back even more onto the fact that like without like Staios was always going to move with Andlauer. And obviously it was long overdue, as I said earlier, to finally get the announcement that Andlauer would be taking over as the Sens' new owner. And then Staios was brought on pretty quickly after Mike took control. And Staios is poised, calculated, and has his cards close to the chest, which is everything Pierre Dorion is not. And the word I would use to describe the new regime is calculated. I feel as though they were going from department to department, and they were noting strengths and deficiencies and what they could improve now and what they needed to like slowly roll out. And you mentioned, they didn't make a lot of trades or not a lot of player movement, but they did make changes. And, one of the first ones was bringing in Sean Tierney as the director of analytics. Ottawa does not have a massive history in delving into the side of hockey that is analytics, generally because it just seemed like they went after character guys or bloodline guys and all that. Then all the calculations that this GM group, this ownership group were off because the NHL suspended Shane Pinto for half a season. And then also fined us a first round pick for gross negligence by the GM. And then having to fire the GM. And then the Pinto situation basically like solved itself in regards to his contract because he wasn't going to be playing. So they didn't need to trade anybody to figure out that salary. So then you have Staios taking over as interim GM and then full-time GM. And I still think that they may bring in another helper or maybe even a full-time GM, and Staios goes back to being the president of hockey operations. But I think finally was getting rid of DJ Smith, and you spoke about this. And previous to that was bringing in Jacques Martin as an advisor. Like they brought in Dave Poulin, they let go a lot of scouts. A lot happened with the team, but it still felt slow. And like where the crux of it all is that us as Sens fans, we've been waiting for 7 years to make the playoffs. And we're tired of waiting. The Sens faithful still sold out 19 games this year, which is the most in a long time.
That's almost half of the home games.
Yeah.
And I will say one game was against the Arizona Coyotes. So Leafs and Habs fans, take a chill pill. Okay. We can't sell out the barn against garbage teams.
Yeah. But the the important thing now is like we need growth, and we need real growth. There's no more expecting the Travis Hammoniks of the world to suddenly become something they're not. Start insulating the players you deem as the core with the best in class talent that you've talked about all season. I understand that they want to get this right, and they may not find a way to like toe the line, but still being meticulous, calculated, and strategic. But they still have to be balls to the wall speed, because Sens fans are done. Like, at the end of the day, we were peddled, this is a team. The rebuild is over.
It is a team.
We're going to make the playoffs. Like, all of this stuff. And then the players that you are looking at as your core guys mentally collapse. They're fragile and they couldn't do it. So it's really time that you look at what Staios's what he's going to be doing with this team, what how we're going to have be bringing in a coach, what that coach will be teaching these guys, because what they've been taught has been bad. And we have very, very good players, but it's time for them to put their big boy pants on and start making some playoff games.
Yeah, and I think the exit interviews were quite telling, especially from leadership guys like Shabbat and Kachuk. They're obviously frustrated. They obviously want to win. I think obviously the onus is definitely on the players to get it done on the ice. You can't have just a great head coach on the bench and that's it, right? You need the team to buy into a system, to play to their strengths, to have the coach recognize what their strengths are, both on a team basis and on an individual basis. That all factors into things for sure. But like you said, like they need to get it done. It's been quite some time. Brady Tkachuk's been on the NHL roster since he was 18. He's 24. He's going to be 25 early on next season. Ottawa needs to make something happen. And, like that's it. That's the bottom line. But I'll pass off to Bennett. And, what are your thoughts on the first season of Andlauer and Staios at the helm?
I think it was a really interesting year, and I think it holds a lot of promise for where this team is going in the future. I think there's one thing that we need to note right off the top, and that was that the Senators' sale was sort of agreed in principle in April of last year, and Andlauer did not get the keys, so to speak, until the middle of September. So there was about 6 months there where the sale of the team was, in the hands of lawyers and accountants and the NHL Board of Governors, in which time, and that was essentially lost time in which Andlauer could not impose his vision upon the franchise. And I think that we all commented at the start of the season where Andlauer and then Staios, who we brought in quite shortly after taking the keys, and co, did not really have time to do anything before the season started. I think, and this is again a complete hypothetical, that if the team had had a couple of months of lead time before the puck dropped in October, Dorion and DJ would have been gone before then. But what happened is that they ended up being thrust into taking the reins basically as the team was in training camp. And I suspect felt that they didn't want to blow everything up right before the season started. But of course, we all know exactly what happened. It was that we had hoped that the circus that the Senators were used to being a part of under Melnyk, of the constant weirdness and drama and sort of like being the center of attention at times for the NHL would be over, but that spilled into the start of the Andlauer tenure as well, through no fault of his own, because all of it had to do with things that happened before he joined the team. So we had the Shane Pinto suspension, which is still mysterious to all of us. I think we've heard rumors that it might have been because a friend used his betting account to place bets, but Pinto didn't. again, like a seemingly very harsh sentence for what was essentially like a technicality, but is what it is. That's what you expect with the league and the Ottawa Senators. And similarly, you know, Dorion in the move that cost him his job when the Senators were handed a first round pick, were uh charged a first round pick in because of the weirdness with the Dodonov no movement clause that was not communicated to Vegas years ago. Again, in something that probably happens all the time and no teams get punished for it, but because Dorion was so disliked across the league, and I believe that Graham Nichols had a good piece on that. Oh, it might have been Luke Peristy, but someone wrote a really interesting piece around the time that Dorion was canned that basically said like this guy was almost universally disliked among other GMs, and which probably led to the team getting punished for his actions more than would have been the case if he had been less odious to be around. But I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but all that is to say that I think Andlauer would have wanted more time to sit and think about the decisions that they wanted to make, but they were forced to kind of get rid of Dorion before giving him a season, and they were forced to get rid of DJ because the results were so terrible. And in the end, like we all sort of knew that those moves had to be made. It was just the way that they were made, like made it more difficult for the team to, because all of it happened in the middle of the season, and all of that lack of stability probably had an impact on the team as well. I think that we did start to see some heads rolling, and the correct heads. You know, DJ and Dorion go without saying, they both did a lot of harm to this team, and its long-term prospects. Seeing pro scouts lose their jobs, also good. That's been a huge weakness of the team for many years. So I think that, but at the same time, they have done their best to not shake up the actual team until they had a full season under their belts of watching everything. There was a lot of discussion at the trade deadline about whether the Senators would be moving quote unquote core pieces, you know, whoever you think might be a part of that conversation. And I think that Staios wisely did not do that until he had the full 82 games of data to look back on, qualitative and quantitative. And I think the offseason is the best time to make those kind of changes. So I think that now why I take that as a positive is because there's a process, like you said, Nath, they're calculated. This this new ownership group do not appear to be prone to making rash decisions. I think that if they had been so inclined, they would have just canned Dorion and DJ as soon as they got in the door. But they tried to give them some rope. They tried to give them some leeway to prove themselves, and they both failed to clear that bar, and so they did lose their jobs. But for the players and the team on the ice, they've shown a reluctance to do anything drastic, and I think that doing things drastic has cost the Senators in the past, much as we were all excited about moves like trading for Alex DeBrincat or Jake Chychrun, or years going back further, Matt Duchene. I think it's fair to say that all of those moves have been a net negative for the Senators. They've cost us precious draft capital that the team probably needed more than it needed star players when we're consistently out of the playoffs. You know, having guys like DeBrincat and Chychrun on your team is sort of superfluous when you're not playing in April, and the draft picks probably would have been worth more to us than these guys who are already off the team, or in the case of Chychrun, soon to be off the team. So I'm glad that they didn't do things like that, and they're taking their time to think about it. And I think that we'll see some big changes this offseason, like you said. But so far, I've been encouraged by the approach and the attitude that I've seen from Staios and Andlauer. I think they seem a lot more assured and confident, and less prone to making knee-jerk kind of moves, which is a good thing.
And I think the first test, or at least maybe the first test in the eyes of Sens fans, will come at this year's draft. Obviously, Ottawa Senators fans, regardless of who is calling the shots in the war room on draft day, it's going to be Steos who everyone kind of will blame if this draft class ends up being, garbage in the next few years and they have no guys graduating to the NHL. It's just kind of the way it goes. Look at any draft class. Look at the 2021 draft class, where Trent Mann basically said that they had earned the right to draft who they wanted or something to that effect. And, everyone now blames that draft class, either on Dorion or I believe Pierre Maguire. Anyway, whereas we don't actually know if either of those guys are running the show, right? It seemed like Trent Mann had the keys to that, but at the end of the day, the GM catches the flack no matter what happens. So unless something is leaked otherwise. All that to say, that'll be coming up in just a couple of months, and the draft will be huge. And shortly after that, it'll be, re-signing contracts and buyouts if they do so, free agency, and it'll truly give Sens fans, I think, the ability to judge the front office and be like, okay, did the moves they make seem like, at least, on paper, is how it's been the last couple of years, but on paper, does it seem like they're making moves that make sense? Not just getting that big name player. Are they bringing in players who improve the parts of the roster that have been identified not just by the organization but as fans as like being a very noticeable weak spot? Where whether that's defensive depth on the right side, whether it's a better goaltending tandem, better forward depth, whatever it may be. And so it'll be really interesting to see what they do about that. And yeah, I mean, on that note, I think we could potentially talk about Steve Stamkos's presser and the fact that he mentioned that they didn't anticipate having any buyouts. He was kind of wishy-washy, like he didn't want to rule them out, but he didn't want, like, he said that they weren't going to do any. It was a little bit mixed messaging there, but I don't know if either of you guys want to comment on that, but there were a few messages that Steve Stamkos tried to get across in that presser, and happy to chat about it if you guys want to jump to that now.
Yeah, I kind of watched with bated breath about the Steve Stamkos presser because, well, actually the entirety of the season closeout, we got a lot of really interesting tidbits. Shabbat said something to the effect of like, we want a coach that is going to like teach us and hold us accountable and stuff like that. I'm like, man, what what kind of country club were these fellas playing in? And then obviously the one that got the most airplay was Jacob Chikrin's, when asked about the future and if he wants to stay in Ottawa or be in Ottawa, and he basically said, that's a tough question to answer. Like, I haven't talked to a management or anything like that. So it definitely leaves a lot of question marks about it. And then Steve Stamkos said, we don't think we'll be exercising that option in relation to buyouts with this group. And I thought that was really interesting because, earlier he said like we were going to be checking out every avenue. But buyouts are a very serious one, and like that's an easy one to get, at least Travis Hamonics off the books because you can't really do anything with that guy.
And sorry, just to touch on that, I've seen a lot of people are like, what's the point of buying out Hamonic? It's not just about the money savings. It's the fact that because he has a no move clause, he just takes up an NHL roster spot. You can't have him assigned to the AHL. So you will have to carry him on your NHL roster going into next season. And he could be your, seventh, maybe eighth defenseman because you have a guy in Belleville who is better than Hamonic, but then Hamonic has that roster spot. You can't call that dude up to replace him. So, like, without it obviously incurring more cap than what you'd want, because you can bury a little over, I think, 1.2 mil in the minors. So, just to add on to your point, like, it's not just about the cost savings, it's about the other implications of having that contract on the books.
Yeah. So, then we saw some good questions about drafting and what their philosophy will be. And at first it was, we're looking for character and hockey sense, and both of those questions have some time, or both of those characteristics kind of have been polar opposites of each other in some players. Character guys are generally the tough, gritty Ridley Greggs of the world, whereas hockey sense guys are more your Tim Stutzlas. So, hey, if you can find a player in the draft that has both of those, great. We love it. But then he also followed up by saying, we're going to be taking the best player available. And I think that's the smart option. The Senators can't have enough good thing in one spot. And if they feel there's a player on the board that is really going to knock it out of the park with that pick, so be it. Just make sure you're not taking a guy who's slated to go 25th at 7th.
Do the Senators have a history of doing that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't name anybody that maybe that could be. Unless it's
no one named Byler Touche.
Yeah. But maybe if they do that with Adam Jiricek and they thought he was really highly touted and he just lost a year because of injury and they're taking advantage of that, like, cool, like I can respect that decision, but whatever.
Yeah, there has to be some semblance of logic behind that decision like that.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, do you guys want to do our best, worst, and most surprising players like we normally do at the end of each season?
Let's get into it.
All right, Benito, we're going to kick it off with you. Who was the best Ottawa Senator, in your opinion, of the 2023-24 NHL season?
Well, I think that we've all talked about how disappointing this season has been. And so, whereas you would normally want to pour some love out for the Senators' star players, I think with the possible exception of Brady Tkachuk, none of them have really impressed this year. So I went slightly off the board, perhaps not, depending on what you guys say. And I went with Shane Pinto. Shane really impressed me in the half a season that he did play this year. He had 9 goals, 18 assists, and 27 points in 41 games played. He was a +9. Not a lot of those on the team. If it wasn't for the aforementioned somewhat mysterious suspension, this would have easily been considered his breakout season if he'd maintained a similar-ish kind of point pace throughout the year. He helped give the Sens a little bit of respectability down the stretch. He fulfilled an important middle six center role. And in fact, in some of the last games of the year, was our top center with Timmy out for the last few games of the season. And he was skating on that line with Giroux and Tkachuk. So yeah, I think he's such a useful player. He has a really good skill set. I think that he's going to be in for a pretty big pay raise, considering he was on a league minimum for the last bit of the year here. And I just think that, with the future of Norris up in the air, I think that guys like Greg and Pinto are going to be so important to this team going forward, because if they can step up and make the most of the roster spots that are available down the middle, that could really make a difference for the Senators going forward.
Now, Naif, who did you have as your best player of this season?
So I went with a guy that I felt like was going to be building on a strong season. Previously, he was a rookie. He was a defenseman. And it was Jake the Snake Sanderson. I would say he was probably the most impressive player for me. Setting a career high in point totals with 38, 10 goals, 28 assists, and a +8 in 79 games. A lot of people thought he was, last season, like God's gift to defense. And, from an Ottawa Senators fan perspective, he was, because we haven't seen a lot of really good defensemen. And he just does everything so well. And when you noticed him screw up, it was it was like, oh, this guy's human. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But I have to like show some love to the Jake Sanderson Artem Zub pairing, because analytically speaking, they were in the top 10 of I believe goals above replacement in the league. That's across, over 1,000 D pairings. They were top 10. And I think that's something that needs to be praised. And he just keeps getting better. And I think we're going to see him really come into his own next season, where he is consistently just playing with one guy. He's not being kind of moved around. And I already think he's worth his contract at, $8 million. So, man, it feels good to have a guy like Jake Sanderson on the team, because he is so friggin' good.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Sanderson was my best player this season. It was between him and Shane Pinto. So I went with Jake Sanderson just because I think to play defense the way he did for the full season is quite impressive for a guy who's only 21. I was following along out of just curiosity because one of his comparables was Miro Heiskanen. That was a guy who people were like, if he could even be a fraction of Miro Heiskanen's talent, that'll be huge for the Ottawa Senators. Currently, he's on a trajectory that is better than Miro Heiskanen when it comes to analytically impactful play in the defensive zone. Of course, I think his points will continue to grow. I don't ever think he'll be a point per game defenseman. If he does, like, sure, okay, I'll take it. But even if he's getting, 40, 50 points a season, I think 50 points and a solid defensive game is huge for any club. And yeah, I'll take that every day. So Jake Sanderson in a fairly poor season for the Ottawa Senators was one of the biggest bright spots. So let's move to our worst player. And Bennett, who did you have in this category? I think I can guess.
I was gonna say, can you guess? It might be surprising to none of you. No, Jonas Korpisalo.
Oh, no way.
Who else could it be? The man, the myth, the nightmare. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Korpisalo almost single-handedly turned us into a losing season for the Senators. He finished with an .890 save percentage, a 3.27 goals against in 55 games played, so about 2/3 of the year. His quality starts percentage, i.e., the number of games that he started in which he had a good enough save percentage that was to give the team a chance to win. His quality starts percentage was 4.49, meaning that in fewer than 50% of the games he played, did he give the Senators a reasonable chance of winning. And that's just, I mean, how many times did we see Korpisalo let in the first or second goal shot of the game? Sometimes both. The Senators frequently found themselves playing well, outplaying the other team, and then down 2 goals or 3 goals due to Korpisalo's inability to read play, to stay focused, to use his glove. Just generally speaking, and it's so deflating. I mean, we've talked about this over and over again this season because of the nature of our goaltending results. But just, especially under Jacques Martin, the Senators became consistent like shot leaders. Like under DJ, we were used to just getting shelled all the time, but under Jacques Martin, in the back half of the season, the Senators routinely had more shots than the other team, often by like a large margin, and we still managed to lose a lot of those games due to Korpisalo's poor play, and Forsberg as well. But I mean, Korpisalo started more games, and really it's more on his shoulders. But conspiring to lose games that we were dominant for, losing games right out of the gate due to just getting scored on a couple times in the first few minutes and then just playing catch up the rest of the game. All of this just has such a negative psychological effect on the team. It leads to guys just like being checked out because they feel that nothing that they do on their end of the ice is going to make a difference when you can't get a save at your own on your own end. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say about this guy. I don't really see a way to get out from under that contract without exercising a buyout that would be on this team's books for a very long time, which is unfortunate because I think that, and I don't think anyone's going to want to trade him because he was, as we stated earlier, one of statistically the worst goalies in the league. He really has no value this offseason. It's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow. This contract for Korpisalo was one of the last big swings by GM Pierre Dorion. I've never met a man that took more swings and which missed on more of them. I mean, this is a dude that if he could walk into the casino with $1 million and be $1 million in debt by the end of the night, like I don't know what else we can say about this, but just that last gasp of Dorion just saddling us with this clown for another 4 seasons. It's tough. It's tough to take. Korpisalo, he sucks. I hate him so much. He makes my when I wake up in the morning. I'm not being funny. I'm so serious right now.
It's pretty funny.
When I wake up in the morning and I remember that he plays for our team, it makes my day worse. I'm so serious right now. This is
Bennett
not a
wakes
joke.
up in the morning, curses the All-Father for having Jonas Korpisalo on the Ottawa
That
Senators.
contract, it lives rent-free in my head. Like I'm not okay about it. This is a source of psychological distress for me. Korpisalo, if there's any possible way for him to not be on the team next year, even if it costs us something, even if like, then I think we have to consider it. It's just like, if nothing else, just like as punishment, just to know that like this guy should not just be able to continue living his life thinking that like he's a real goaltender because he's not.
Damn.
That's it. That's all I got.
Scorched earth.
Oh my God. All right. Over to
All
you.
right, Nafe, who are you picking as your worst player of the season?
Jonas Korpisalo.
There we go, baby.
And yeah, it's
All right,
tough.
next.
Well, I'm not gonna say that he shouldn't be a goalie or whatever, but it is odd that a guy who was dynamite for Columbus the season prior, goes to LA, has some success there as well, and then gets a pretty sizable contract. And as we've said on previous podcasts, quality goalies don't really ever get to free agency. The last two that really are successful, I would say, are Linus Ullmark, and you could, like, right now, I would say Sergei Bobrovsky. But quality starting goalies don't really get there because they're quality starting goalies, and a team giving up a quality starting goalie is losing a quality starting goalie. I said quality starting goalie like 6 times there. So there's a bit of a red flag there. Then he gets signed to a monster contract, 5 years, $4 million a year. And I think one of the things that like really took me by surprise was the fact that if I had told you that out of Jonas Korpisalo and Anton Forsberg, which of those two has played in more games in one season and had a better save percentage, everybody would say Jonas Korpisalo, right? It's wrong. Other than this year, he has never started more games in a season than Forsberg. Forsberg had 46 games a couple seasons ago and had a .917 save percentage, which is higher than Korpisalo has ever had. And thank God Pierre Dorion didn't look at Forsberg at that time and was like, oh, better sign to a 6-year deal. The difference is that Korpisalo makes these unbelievable 10 bell saves that a goalie shouldn't make, but then turns around and makes the savable saves look impossible. Somebody said Jonas Korpisalo should legitimately get his eyes checked to see if he is nearsighted as opposed to farsighted. And then finally, he was just super disappointing. And a guy who comes to a team that has a black, red, and gold colorway should not have all white pads. You thought you were going to get traded in Columbus. Fair play. Just stick with all white. But you come to the Ottawa Senators, you have a sick goalie mask. And then you go with all white pads. Canceled. That should be the buyout right there.
Yeah.
Matt, who's your worst?
So, God.
Clean sweep.
No, actually. So my worst player was a guy who, coming into the season, was coming off a 40-plus point season, was a player who I thought we'd solidify the middle six of the lineup, was a guy who I thought would be a at least solid depth piece when Ottawa was replacing a top six forward with this guy. And was a guy who talked about wanting to get a multi-year contract in this summer. And that's a guy who probably won't even play in the NHL next season. That is Dominik Kubalik. I have never seen, as a Sens fan, a guy who has gone from being a top six forward on Detroit, albeit on Detroit, I get that, but a top six forward to a guy who shouldn't be in an NHL lineup in the course of a single season. It is an insane drop off, but Dominik Kubalik managed to do that to the point where he wasn't being trusted at all by Jacques Martin. Jacques Martin didn't have this guy in the lineup. You know, he sent this guy to the freaking shadow realm of minutes. Although he did get a lot of power play time, which that's a whole other discussion, but was beyond me comprehension. I have no idea why they gave this guy power play minutes, but he had 11 goals this season, I believe, and like 4 assists. You know who had more points than him? Parker Kelly. Parker
friggin' Kelly, baby.
Kelly was a guy who, after the 22-23 season, people were saying, oh, he shouldn't be on an NHL roster anymore. He shouldn't be on the Sens. They should just put him in the minors. You know, Parker Kelly, and we'll get to Parker Kelly maybe at some point, but Parker Kelly outscored Dominik Kubalik, who had 45 points last season. It was one of those things. And I know Dominik Kubalik had a hot start with Detroit last season and then kind of cooled off as the season went. But still, to go from 45 points to 15 is a huge drop off. And it's not like he was not getting good minutes. He was a guy who was playing, you know, sometimes second, third line minutes, got to play with a guy like Tarasenko, got to play power play minutes. He was getting ample opportunity and he did almost nothing with it. So he is my Sens worst player this season.
I legitimately forgot Kubalik existed.
And I think most Sens fans will forget he played for the team in a few years from now.
Yeah, I frequently forgot about him throughout the year. And then you'd see him on a power play and be like, what the hell is he doing out there?
And honestly, like, I think that's a really good pick. But he's...
Yeah. Now, when we go into this final category for most surprising players, I will kick it off. Because my most surprising player, in a negative way, was Jonas Korpisalo. And listen, Jonas Korpisalo, I was a truther. Okay. The last,
you have his jersey, man.
Hey, let me get into it. Okay. The last goalie jersey first goalie jersey I ever bought was Craig Anderson. And this comes from a guy who was like a huge Martin Brodeur fan as a kid. Okay. First goalie jersey I buy is Craig Anderson. Aged like a fine wine. I bought that bad boy during the 2011-2012 season. No regrets. You know, he played great in Ottawa. I was like, you know what? Ottawa has had a string of bad luck in goals since Craig Anderson left. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go buy a Jonas Korpisalo jersey. I'm going to turn this voodoo around. It is my responsibility to do that. Now, there is a picture that exists of me on Twitter wearing a Jonas Korpisalo jersey.
Yeah.
The Sens did lose that game, although he actually did play well that game. Although maybe Forsberg. No, I think Korpisalo started. Anyway, he had a good game. They lost like 3-2. I kind of wish I got a Jake Sanderson jersey.
Honestly, like I think as you're saying this, the funniest thing is like so naturally I bought a Jonas Korpisalo jersey. It's just so fun.
Yeah. So the copium and hopium, I have both right now.
Love it.
Is the last time the Ottawa Senators brought in a goaltender from Columbus who had I believe about an 890, maybe 889 save percentage in his first full season with the club, was the one, the only Pascal Leclerc.
Yeah.
In his brief but second season with the Sens, where he played not nearly as many games, he had a 908 save percentage. Okay, respectable. Maybe at the time that was pretty low, maybe for a starting goalie, but nowadays with the goaltending pads being smaller, goal scoring being up, a 908 would be sufficient at the NHL level right now. I think league average this year was like 900, 899, 900. So that would be good. So my hopium and copium is that next season, Korpisalo will be here. They will have brought in another goalie to play tandem with him, and he'll have a 900 or better save percentage. And the reason why I'm hoping this is, one, because I bought that friggin' jersey, which is probably looking as hilarious as the dude who bought that Matt Murray jersey. I am now in that club. At the time, I was like, "Ooh, bro, rough." I'm in that club.
Ooh, bro, rough. Ooh,
yeah. Ooh, Korpisalo. Yeah, I'm in that club. And I think part of it was because we talked to Aaron Portzline before last season, and he was like, ever since Jonas Korpisalo got hip surgery, he has looked much better, and he put that off for a long time. And the first season after he got that hip surgery, he looked good and had a really solid season. He ends up getting traded to LA, where he plays even better than he did on a Columbus team that was crap. So you looked at the Sens and you're like, okay, their defensive core is better. They have Chychrun now. They have Sanderson, who's up and coming. They have Zub. Brandstrom's been a good, defensive defenseman, in my opinion, for the last couple seasons. So it's like you have a defensive core that looks like it's on par with LA's on paper going into this season. And, Pierre Dorion said that he scouted Korpisalo in person during the playoffs. And obviously they were playing Edmonton, so his stats weren't the best, like any team that plays Edmonton. But he said that he liked what he saw. And, for all the criticisms of Pierre Dorion, we would like to believe that he was at least a good amateur scout. So I went into the season, I was like, you know what? I think Korpisalo playing behind this team, he will do at least what he did in Columbus, put up like a 911 save percentage, look competent. And I think the Sens could make the playoffs, not because of him, but because they have a goaltender who can at least put up a save percentage that is acceptable. That didn't happen. And, I don't know if he has to go into this offseason, get whether it's a new training regime, whether it's a sports psychologist, another goalie coach, somebody to help him, whether it's like an independent goalie school from the Ottawa Senators, just get a different perspective on his technique and change it. Kind of like Matt Murray, I think, tried to do after one season in Ottawa. Something like that to just try and change his habits. I think that would do a lot for him. Now, the one positive I will say is that Pierre Dorion, unlike the Matt Murray contract, he made this contract more buyout friendly in the fact that more of the money is paid up front than in the latter half of the deal. And there's no signing bonuses. So that helps. Now, of course, it's still 4 more years left on the deal. So that's not great. All this to say, I sound like I'm sounding positive, but it was just disappointing. And I think for me, the most surprising thing was I was expecting a at least starting caliber goalie, and Ottawa got a subpar backup goaltender out of him. And so that I think was most surprising in a negative way for me. And on a very brief, I had to do a double as a positive, I will say that my surprising positive player was Parker Kelly. He's a guy who through the first few months of the season under DJ Smith, I was like, not seeing it. Okay, maybe he looks marginally better than last season, but let's bring in someone else. Jacques Martin comes in, and I don't know what happened with Parker Kelly's game. He wasn't impervious to mistakes, but he looked a hell of a lot better. And it's like a gear switched. And I'm really happy for him. I think he had a great season. And I won't get into too much detail because I know I've been rambling, but he was my surprising positive player of the season. So now I'll throw it over maybe Bennett if you want to go with your most surprising player of the season.
Yeah, keeping on brand, my most surprising player this year is a -1, and that is Jacob Chychrun. Jacob Chychrun is a guy who I was pretty high on. I believe, Matt, you and I did the podcast like a year and a bit ago when we were talking about the trade to land Chychrun, and at the time we were both super excited and we were confidently like, oh yeah, like good players make the team better, and who cares what side he plays on. Turns out we should care what side he plays on, because Jake Sanderson playing on the right-hand side is not really it. Playing with Thomas Chabot, not really it. That, in terms of you mentioned how the Sanderson-Zub pairing is one of the best in the league. The Chabot-Chychrun pairing is one of the worst in the league analytically. Those are two guys whose games does not complement each other at all. And I think many people expect to see one of them moved this offseason, and based on the tone of his comments at the season exit interviews, I think most people are now expecting Jake Chychrun to be that guy. He has the more enticing contract for other teams, and probably has more value, whereas, and also, on the positive side, Chabot is a leader, and I think when he's at his best, he is arguably a better defenseman than Chychrun is. But getting back to Chychrun here, I mean, he played a full season for the first time in a while, and I was super excited to see what he could do for this lineup by being there from game one. And I think he started off the season pretty strong, but just over the course of the year, it just became more and more apparent that he really did not have a very positive effect on the defensive core. He was a -30, by far the worst of any of our Sens defenders. So at even strength, he was not very effective. He had 41 points in 82 games played, which was respectable for a defenseman. I mean, sorry, let me be a little bit clearer. That's pretty good for a defenseman. That's, most defenders don't score 40 points, and he has a really good shot. And at times, he's a flashy player, and when he is flashing, it looks good. It's just that, man, -30, not really complimenting the play of our best players who we sort of expected him to play well with. Frequently getting kind of like Chychrun is a very big dude, and he would frequently get kind of outworked and outmuscled in our back end, cough the puck up a lot, not great in transitions or getting the puck, into the opposition zone. Just I think a lot of statistically, as well as just kind of watching him play the game, it was just disappointing to see where his defensive game is at. And I think it's clear to say in hindsight that he didn't really move the needle on the Sens decor very much, which really sucks because we gave up, some decent picks to get him, and he really didn't move the needle. And I think it seems clear that he's probably going to end up being traded this year. And that's, as we alluded to before, that's just another big swing that this team took under Dorion that did not pan out, and which cost us draft capital that we probably could have used, considering that we are still not a playoff team. And I think that what is the value of 1.5 seasons of Jacob Chychrun in which we played 0 playoff games weighed against, potential top 10 picks that could be in our prospect pipeline ready to make the NHL. And so it was surprising in a bad way, because I was pretty high on Chychrun I thought he would have a lot of value as a Sens player, and that he seemed really hyped to be here. And both of those things seem to have not super panned out. Like even earlier this year, he was saying to Ian Mendez, is like, yeah, I don't know where these trade rumors are coming from. I'm really happy here. I live super close to family. Like it's great. Like I don't have, I want to be here, basically. And then 3 months later, he was basically like, oh, yeah, I don't know. Hard to say. Those conversations haven't happened. I don't know if I want to commit, like, blah, blah, blah. It's, I think that attitude wise as well, it's been a little disappointing that when the going got tough, he kind of folded both on the ice and off it. I think that is unfortunate.
And I think the one thing everyone was worried about was his health, but he managed to stay healthy the whole season. And that
Yeah.
wasn't even the biggest issue. So I think that says something as well. But Matt, finish us off here, buddy.
Well, apparently Bennett and I talked before because my most disappointing or my most surprising and negative would be Jacob Chikrin. And it's really unfortunate because I had really high expectations of this guy. I remember saying on several podcasts, like, this guy got Norris votes. And quite honestly, I have no goddamn reason why. I have no idea why.
Right?
Like watching him in his own end is frustrating. Because that's a guy that should be physically dominant. And it just doesn't look like he thinks the game well. And I've been on record this season as saying, like, if it came down to like Shabbat or Chikrin, it's Shabbat like by a million. I really feel like Dorion was the king of name chasing. And we thought Chikrin was better. Hell, he probably thought Chikrin was better. But this guy like has not come in and shown he's as good as we have heard. And we got a full season from him. I almost rather he got hurt so that like we could just chalk it up to that. But he had a full season of being healthy. And you're right, like it always just seemed like when the going got tough, he got going. His dad went on a blocking spree on Twitter by anybody that complained about him. So he did himself. And it's unfortunate to see that because, like sometimes criticism is what drives success. And you can get better from that. And it never felt like I came away from a game being like, oh my God, he was so dominant. Like there were games he scored 2 goals, but I wouldn't say he was, dominating at both ends of the ice. So it sucks because I really expected a lot from him and he was just like, okay. So.
Well, on that note, bit of a longer episode today, but I think there was a lot to discuss, maybe vent about. Bennett letting the dark side flow, which, respect. I know he has that inner demon in him, and, we love it here on the Senstennial Podcast, which, yeah. So, no, all that to say, I think our feelings are very well documented here, and hopefully we can have your feelings documented on the show because we are looking to have a fan episode in the near future. So if you've stuck around with us this far in the episode, please consider sending us a message, whether it's on Twitter or Discord or Reddit, if that's your preference. And yeah, let us know what you want to talk about on the show, maybe a little bit about your thoughts on this season, and we'll have you on and we'll just talk some Sens hockey, and you can vent, you can share your hopeless optimism like I do. And we take any kind of opium on this show, except for that
The
opium.
actual opium.
Yeah, except for that one. Although I can't confirm for everyone else, but for me, I know. Yeah. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate it, guys. And go Sens go. Not till next season,
Yeah.
but
I mean, like just as I guess this is probably like the final regular episode of the regular season for us. So, um, for everybody that watched this season, watched along with the Senstennial, like thanks for tuning in. We couldn't have done it without you because if nobody's listening, it's way less fun to do it. And the Sens aren't really fun to talk about. So uh, it's more fun when people watch and engage with us. And I would say this was probably one of our best season. Well, it was the best season for engagement for us. A lot of people were tuning in and engaging with us on social media and all that stuff. So thank you from the three of us. I know Bennett's in his corner still thinking about Corpus Salad right now, but
I always
I
am.
promise he is thankful.
Yeah, it's it's fun. It's fun doing this. It's fun chatting with fans. It's fun chatting amongst ourselves. It's fun talking to guests when they come on. It's just a really good way of engaging with the team that we all love. And so some of us it might be a tough love. At times it is tough to love the Ottawa Senators. It is tough to love being a fan. But hey, there were some dark years there in COVID where you couldn't go to games and stuff, and it's just getting to set foot in the CTC and spend time with friends and family, and occasionally see a really strong Sens performance is great, and getting to talk about it on here is also great. And even though there's times when we run out of things to say because we're sick of seeing the same stuff over and over again, we keep coming back, baby. And to Andlauer and co, and to whoever ends up being our coach next year, all I can say is spank me harder because I'm here for it. We're gonna take it regardless, and let's just have some fun with it.
thought you were gonna say like good luck.
No,
I mean
no,
that
no, no.
too. That too.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Good luck. Spank me
Bennett's
harder.
going for the kink thing. All right. Explicit content warning going on this episode.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you everybody for
Hearing is
watching.
believing.
Oh god. And it's gone back to Robillard. Sick. All right. Hope everyone has a great night, day, whatever it is. Go Sens go. Enjoy the playoffs, and we'll catch you the fan episode, and then I guess towards the draft. So
Yeah, we got a lot of interesting stuff coming. So stay tuned.
see ya, folks.
Later.